welcome back, everyone. We are ready for the second half of our WUDMilan 2021. Before we start again, let me remind you that at the end of every speech, we have a dedicated Q&A section. So don't be shy and put all your questions in the chat. So let me welcome our next speaker. We have Marco Buonvino from Rome. How are you today, Marco?
Hi, Francesco. It's very good. Thank you. And you?
Great.
Also.
So, Marco Buonvino is currently a UX and service design lead at Poste Italiane. And in his speech today, he will talk about a different design approach called lateral thinking. So I'll leave it to you, Marco.
Thank you very much. So maybe I'll just share the screen. Okay. Thank you. I'm back now with superpowers, and I can share my screen now. I hope you can see the screen.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay. Can I minimize that? Awesome. Great. So thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts here at World Usability Day. I wanted to thank also the organizers for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here again, and thank you for having me. Before we start, I just wanted to make it clear that the contents of my presentation are a result of my opinions. So my purpose is to promote discussion about digitalization, in particular into this particular moment of history of pandemic and lockdown. So let me make some sort of introduction. It's Thursday afternoon. It's raining outside, and you are into an ideation workshop. Your challenge is to make a service, let's say, for example, a traditional physical experience, more appealing, profitable, and accessible for everyone. Suddenly, Jerry, one of the main stakeholders, says, well, let's just make it digital. Could be that hard. It's not that difficult. I can almost see your first thought. I can illustrate that. Could be something like this. Oh, Jerry. And the second could also be something like this. One does not simply make it digital, Jerry. I will make some sort of time dilation experiment with you. I will take 20 minutes in order to describe these 3 seconds that happen into your mind. Welcome to my presentation. I will describe what I say, the lateral digitalization. And in order to make that, I will make a deep dive on the context, and I will give some data. We are living a digital disruption totally. The pandemic has changed how we how we use and perceive digital touchpoints. For example, in Italy, this data from Italy, people are doing smart working. People that are doing smart working, and 6 million. That is an increase of 1,000% before the first lockdown, and 1 million people actually connected to the internet for the first time. And we also are living an increase in diversity. I will take, for example, just one very interesting data that is for people aged 16 years, 65 years and more, that they actually had to get closer to the web. So actually we had an increase of 9.5% of people using internet, and also a bigger increase of people aged 65 using social networks. So actually, we are having new kind of people into the web that maybe have never been before, and they absolutely aren't used to the language and to the usage of the web. So actually, as I said, we are living a total disruption of the setting of the normal usage of internet. I will also take inspiration from the consumer decision journey by McKinsey in order to describe how we do consider using services and products that are digital and physical, whatever. The first part of this particular loop is when we consider different kinds of solutions, and then we evaluate them in order to find that particular service or product that we use. We were used to do that before the pandemic. And after we use them, that kind of services and products, we may become advocate of those services and products and create both that it is called the loyalty loop. So we become advocate of that services and we create a bond. So we don't consider and evaluate something anymore. The inspiration that I got from Alessandro, that I think is that the lockdown actually cut two parts of the consideration loop. So we have been forced to not consider and evaluate different solutions, or just to consider and evaluate some specific solutions that allowed us to keep distance. So, for example, we had to understand how to make web calls or do smart working or use all those services that maybe we weren't used before. And the lockdown actually closed the part of the loop in which we consider and evaluate different things. But after 2 years, we created another kind of comfort zone. So actually, the part of the lockdown of the circle that has drawn in red has become also a comfort zone for after 2 years. So actually, if we are taking consideration, evaluation, different solutions, for example, that aren't digital, could be difficult for us. So, for example, let's take you are used to watch movies by streaming services at comfort of your house. Maybe you won't evaluate anymore to go to the cinema, or for example, the online grocery could be another great example in which people get used to do grocery online, and today maybe they won't consider and evaluate different solutions. So actually, COVID and lockdown changed also how do we consider it, create consideration about using services. And if we change as users, we also need to change as designers and managers, in my opinion. We still apply those patterns that were used before. We apply patterns in order to make things easier for our mind, in order to understand better the world. If we are designers and managers, we try to create something, and the same patterns that we used before aren't applicable anymore, or could be applicable in different ways. We need to know how to embrace these recent changes. So it is important that we open up our minds. I will take some examples of what I call the simple digitalization in order to better understand what I mean. One example could be a restaurant menu that is available by QR code, and then you discover that it is just a PDF of the physical version of the menu. It is a problem because the physical version of the menu was thought with the rules of the paper, of the typography, of a different media totally, and just translating it into a digital one could be not effective as it was on paper. But if we may think also to another example, that could be a concert, or maybe in an event that it's simply casted via streaming. I can do some meta reference. And maybe also this specific events that we are living and attending now, that you are doing that into this particular moment, it's an example maybe of simple digitalization. You are going to miss a lot. For example, I definitely miss the networking or taking a coffee with friends, for example. And by also as a speaker, I definitely miss the audience or the idea of hundreds of people looking at me at once. The thrill, I really miss that. And another example could be a 2-hour frontal lessons, 2-hour frontal lesson made via distance learning. It's absolutely strange to do via computer a frontal lesson as we did before. And the idea of simple digitalization is that simple is lossy. The blind translation of a physical experience into a digital one absolutely involves a loss in depth. It can be tempting if you already have a technology. It could be, you could rush, for example, the usage of technology in order to digitize an experience. But it could be, the risk is that is doing it in a simple way. The problem is that simple digitalization risk to penalize the human side of the experience in order to make a quick or a easier solution. So I would just stick to that. And we may do another example. This is quite common and popular today, and it is the metaverse. I watched the Facebook Connect event. It was very interesting. But as I was trying to define what the core value of the metaverse was, I think that it was the idea of Zuckerberg, the idea to convey the feeling of co-presence through a digital virtual environment. I'll take just a very slight example, very small example. And the idea is that the worker or the one that wants just to work with others wears the glasses, sees avatars of friends, and just says hi. Awesome. I think that this kind of co-presence, it's interesting because it's something that mimics the real world. But actually, it is just a mimic. So you're trying to recreate the environment of the office into a virtual environment. And you're trying to do maybe the same thing that you're doing with the menu restaurant that we did before. So actually, what I thought after it was maybe we are seeing some sort of return of the skeuomorphism. The skeuomorphism is that approach in which you use metaphors that mimic real-world counterparts in order to express and make people understand more easily new interaction models. That could be for a virtual environment using gestures and VR helmets and whatever. So this kind of approach, actually, it limits creativity. We saw that, for example, if we think about interfaces in which they were skeuomorphism, they used the skeuomorphism, and then after the flat design has happened, and so metaphors weren't so essential anymore, because people understood the interaction model. And then maybe with the metaverse, we are seeing a return of the skeuomorphism. So the question that I had for myself, and also maybe for you, is this: so will the metaverse be another example of simple digitalization of the real world experience? I wanted to share with you a different approach. I think that we need a greater creativity effort. We need to define and create digital native contents in order to take full advantage of the digital media, of the capabilities of the media. I think that, taking inspiration from Fabio, that I really thanks, I think that creativity must be the real core of the design process, even before budgets and technology, because creativity really helps you to create a good digital experience and not just a simple digitalization. Also, I would also try to give you another example, another inspiration. That is one that I heard from John Carmack, always from Facebook Connect. John is the consulting CTO and former CTO of Oculus, and he is a legend in game design, and said something that it is very important. It is the need to stay focused. He said something very interesting about the metaverse. He said that the metaverse is a honeypot trap for architecture astronauts. Those are programmers and designers that only want to look at things at the very highest levels, without they don't really want to talk about bolts and nuts. So the specific requirements or the specific aspects of experience that could be, for example, the battery usage of the VR helmets, or the weight of the helmet itself, or the resolution, or the FPS, or whatever, in which you see the experience. They just want to talk about creating worlds and without limits. He said also that when it was at ID Software creating games like Doom or whatever, he really didn't write game engines. He said he wrote games. And it was very interesting, because he said what he said is just that you need to stay on the right track of the product itself. So you need to concentrate on that and not on technology, architecture, or initiatives. As he said, for example, Horizon Workrooms is the response of the competition for Zoom and Teams, for example. So actually, it's a very measurable and a focused example of the product. So actually, it's something very important, I think, for this kind of approach. And I will give you an example of an experience that is thought for digital for a digital experience. I won't cover the most recent tragic events about the concert was this performer. I will just give you an example of a concert that have been into Fortnite. That is a game, a very popular game, about 1 year ago. This was a particular event in which the concert was not just listen to music, but it was a real event into the game. It had 12 million viewers in 5 different in-game events for covering more different time zones. It is very interesting as an example, because they created an experience by using the same rules and physics of the game. So actually, you're playing the game and seeing a concert in which, for example, the performer is a giant avatar, and you have to follow him, and you have to fly into space with him, and you jump 30 feet and whatever. So it is very interesting, because this particular concept is not just a simple digitalization, is something in which it is included the digital native content that we talked before, because actually is thought for the game. It is very interesting. And there is also an hilarious article from Charles Holmes at Rolling Stone, in which he was forced to listen to this particular event, this concert, but he never played Fortnite before. It's very interesting, because he absolutely didn't understand almost anything. it was completely shocking for him because he hadn't any experience about the game. So actually, it's it's hilarious because I really suggest you to have a look. So the approach that I would like to share with you is what I call the lateral digitalization. We see on the screen the idea of the transformation of a physical experience into a digital one. And this is, for example, an idea of simple digitalization. What we really need is to create, as I said, a set of digital native content that revolve and integrate the experience in order for the user and everyone affected to the service to live a better experience, a more rounded experience, something that is not just a simple digitalization, but something more complex and more, I would say, that deliver extra value, I would think, if we think about the digital experience. So if you do something like this, you really understand that you are creating something that is more than just a simple translation of the physical experience that you started with. For example, if you are trying to digitize a form, a physical form, maybe you can just do that. So actually, you can allow your users to fill in this particular form by a website. But maybe if you are doing into a physical environment, maybe you have the staff, or maybe you have also people that can help you to fill in this particular form or questionnaire or whatever. What you may think that for a digital environment is to create, for example, a website for education in order to create more knowledge about how to fill in this particular questionnaire. Or maybe you can create a chatbot that could help users to answer more properly. Or maybe you can also create a web call service in order to make users ask for help, for example, from another human, in order to fill in the questionnaire without errors, for example. The idea is to create these digital native contents in order to get advantage of the digital media. The risk of doing that is that it requires a lot of effort and commitment into the organization. For example, in particular for bigger and more complex organizations, you need to expect resistance a lot from stakeholders. The causes are quite easy to understand. So it could be the lack of knowledge of digital media capabilities, or maybe pre-existing procedures that were designed for another context, for example, for physical context, or for another time in history, if we think again about the lockdown and post-pandemic. And for example, another risk could be too much attention on due dates and release dates rather than quality. So actually, the risks are many, the resistance are a lot. How could you avoid those risks, or maybe just reduce them? I can suggest you an approach that is called nemawashi. I get inspiration from Erin Casali, that I thank. And it is a semi-formal and systematic approach in which you build consensus horizontally into an organization. The idea is not something that it is dogmatic, but it's something that is, I would say, an approach, also almost a personal approach. The idea is that you create a draft of an idea. You involve deciders, makers, blockers, and affected. So all kinds of stakeholders that can, for example, define how the idea will be drawn, or also blockers that actually can go against your idea. and you inform them, you gather feedback from them, and you improve the idea. By creating this loop of information and feedback gathering. The idea is that you do this loop, this involvement of user, these kind of iterations. You understand the similarities with the design thinking's approach and whatever. And after some iterations, everyone is on board. Everyone is committed. Actually, everyone has given something to the idea, and they will think as it is their idea also. And so the decision-making moment is just, could be maybe just a mere formality. So I really suggest you to deep dive this particular approach, because it's very useful for larger and complex organizations. I think that we as designers and managers really need to contaminate companies and organizations in order to truly understand the nature and capabilities of the digital media, because not everyone knows that. And we really are their bridge in order to better understand this kind of new capabilities. The post-COVID era also will be a time of experimentation. We are already seeing that, and challenges for the digital world. We need absolutely to be more inclusive with everyone. And I think that it's up to us to facilitate the design process into the organization, and also to keep the focus, as we said before, and also ethics at the center, in order to create those digital experiences, those good digital experiences that we want to deliver. A last suggestion that I want to give you is to play the game. There is a lot of knowledge and examples from game design. I already made some examples, but game design is a particular domain that is very good at experimenting and involving this kind of users that we aren't used to. For example, another game that I want to suggest to deep dive is Roblox. And Roblox is a game in which the most part of users, about the 67% of many millions users, are under 13. So again, this new set of users with new languages and new habits that we actually absolutely don't know. And so the suggestion from me to you is to play more games. Or if you don't have time, just use Twitch. But it is very important, because you can understand new interaction models, new patterns, new business models, and stay up to date, because game design, as I said, is very interesting. And another suggestion, there are a lot of podcasts, but something for Italian speakers, that I'm very affectionate to is Chiacchiere di Game Design by Paolo Gambardella. It's very, very interesting, so I really suggest you to have a look. So, wrapping up, I wanted to get back to an initial example and say, thank you for sharing your idea, Jerry. Maybe next time, try to elaborate just a little more. Don't be afraid to be disruptive. My final suggestion is, we really need, as designers and managers, we really need to act as punk unicorns. We need to stay positive, creative, and also sometimes anti-establishment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marco. An amazing speech.
Thank you.
So we are waiting for some questions for you. Meanwhile, I want to just go back to what you touched in your speech, and it is something that we also discussed this morning with Derek Jones, and it's about the metaverse. the Facebook metaverse. And yeah, I definitely agree that it's some form of definitely lazy digitalization, simple digitalization. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on how we could go beyond that. And I don't know. Just
I think it is a starting point. So we really need to stay creative and also critic about the fact that I think it is using a lot of skeuomorphism. So actually, I see as a starting point, for example, if you take the first iteration of iOS, there was a lot of skeuomorphism. For example, the app for reading books had this kind of effect that you turn the paper. It was very interesting, but nowadays we don't really need this kind of metaphor again anymore. So I think that it is a starting point. But there was a particular moment into the Facebook Connect event in which it was shown, for example, some sort of sculpture made into augmented reality. It was starting as a mural, I can say, a painting on the wall. That is something, almost moving, something like that. You could see only just by using the goggles, for example. And then you can just pinch that out and see an incredible sculpture that was moving and reacting to the user. And I think it was the first example of content that was created into the digital world, that it was digital native. So actually, I thought that this kind of experience could be very interesting for the metaverse to create.
Thank you. So we have a few questions for you. Which are the main differences between design thinking and Emawashi?
Okay, I think that design thinking is an approach, can also includes a sort of methods, and it's very, I think it's more structured than Nemawashi. So actually it has phases, and it really explains very nicely how to do the iteration, and so how to go forth. I think that Nemawashi is just some sort of attitude, a personal attitude that you have to perform into the organization. It could be structured in very different ways. So actually it depends from the company culture. The idea is that you really need to involve someone, but you have to do in their own pace, and also in their own, following their rules. You have to get them on board. So actually, I think that it is even more, it needs even more ability to hear, to understand, to stay in connection with others.
Thank you. So the next question is, how do you manage in Poste Italiane to design both for young people and for people who are not very digitalized? Okay.
I wanted just to answer as a professional, so I won't cover really too much the design process into the company. But what I wanted to share with you is that you really need to make research. I think you really need to understand and put yourself into their shoes. So actually, you really need to observe them. So research, I think it's very crucial and essential for avoiding biases. So I think that there is a lot of knowledge about user research. You need to do that. Sometimes it's difficult because you get a lot of resistance, but you really need to stay focused, as we said before, and also show others, maybe by using Nemawashi as an attitude, showing them the hard moments, the difficulties, or the tasks that people can't do to others, in order to also allow them to put themselves in other shoes.
Thank you so much. So I don't think we have any other questions. So again, let me thank you very much for your speech and for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Ciao, everyone.
Ciao. So the next speech is just a few minutes away. Grab a glass of water, have a stretch, and we'll be ready for our next speaker.